guys, welcome back. So today we have a review. I'm filming the intro in class today. Give a shout out. It is on
Wait.
Okay, so my shout out again, my two favorite people in this class. Isaiah, if you're watching this. And London, if you're watching this.
Are you serious?
Do we like this lighting? Is this like nice and ominous? Well, I'm kind of liking it. Okay, perfect. Today, from special request, I'm not gonna steal the spotlight from my shout outs today, but I was requested to do 15 random vocab for AP Gov and then like how to memorize it and stuff like that. So let's get into it. Okay, the first word is advice and consent, which is a power granted to the Senate, which basically means that no one or nothing can be approved or put in motion without Senate approval, such as presidential nominees, so like federal judges, cabinet officers, and also treaties, because remember, the Senate approves treaties, and so advice and consent is just like a fancy way of grouping together the whole Senate's power of being able to approve things. So I don't really know why the advice part is in it, but consent, because you need the Senate's consent to do things. This is a writ of certiorari. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. I don't know how to pronounce that. But basically, all it is the higher courts, so like the Supreme Court or like federal district courts, send an order out to the lower courts and is like, hey, we think the case you're dealing with right now has very much like national significance and would create a really good precedent. So we would love you to just hand it over to us and we can we can decide the outcome of it. And basically just like set a precedent without having to have the defendant or whoever appeal their case from district courts to the Supreme Court. Devolution was it's like a concept, and it was like a time period of when you had a bunch, it was like, I think during the Reagan era, I might be wrong with that, but it's basically just where the power from the federal government is moving more towards the state. It's like a substantial move from the power from federal government to state governments, either over a period of time or in a short period of time. It's not really a specific definition, it's just kind of when federal government power goes to state power. The discharge petition. So this is for debates when House members during debates just want to force a bill out of committee. It's the equivalent of a motion of cloture for filibusters in the Senate, but it's just in the House where you can be like, hey, I'm going to create a discharge petition. Oh, that was hard for me to say. Petition. And anyone that wants to sign it and get this oh my god, I can't talk. Get this bill out of committee. Whoever wants to get this out of committee, sign it, and then we can hopefully get it out of committee. Next are amicus curiae briefs, or friend of the court briefs. And this is when legal documents are filed to the appellate court by like non-party members or just individuals that would like to see a subject be changed. So if you want there to be extreme measures for protecting the environment, you maybe file a case to the federal court as an amicus curiae brief to hope to see a precedent get set about environmental protections. Next is log rolling, which is basically in the legislative branch when certain representatives and senators would like to get their bills passed. They kind of just make this like little treaty or like ally with certain people. They're like, hey, if you sign our bill, we'll sign yours. So it's kind of just like an exchange, if you will. It's just prior restraint is our next vocab word, and this is seen in the case of US v New York Times. Yeah. And that was where this guy decided to send the Pentagon Papers to New York Times for them. Oh my god! So the New York Times to publish, and then the United States government was like, no, I'm not letting you publish that. And that's prior restraint. It's being like the government trying to prevent press from releasing things, which is unconstitutional, because you can like strike down, you can like take down articles and stuff after they're published, but trying to prevent them from publishing it is violating the First Amendment. So that's all prior restraint is. This is the government trying to prevent press from releasing things. Selective incorporation, which is essentially the idea of through the 14th Amendment, maybe it wasn't through one of those. I'm doing most of it off the top of my head, by the way. It just applied the Bill of Rights to the states. So you have the right to bear arms, the right to an attorney, the right to attorney in a civil trial, all these things that now apply to state rules and state constitution and state governments versus just federal. So it kind of gives more federal power in the idea of federalism, where it's like you are making states abide by these federal rules. Next is a pocket veto, which is basically where the president is either hesitant to veto a bill because they don't want to be seen as someone, like if the bill's like make all public schools teach certain curriculum about like gay rights or like things like that, and like if they have like make the curriculum of schools more progressive, and the president doesn't want they're Republican and most of their voters are very conservative, and they wouldn't want that, and so the president doesn't want to be seen as someone who's like homophobic and like super conservative. They also don't want to make their fans upset, so they just let the bill sit in office for 10 days, which automatically kills the bill, and there can be no overrides to this kind of veto because the bill just kind of got lost, and the president's like, sorry, I'm not signing this, but I'm also not vetoing it. So it's kind of like when the president's kind of like a coward and don't really want to be held accountable for things. They're kind of like, oh, whoops, didn't see that. Next is earmarking or earmark, which is when representatives or senators basically set aside or like designate money in the budget towards their like local government or their personal projects for their state or town or wherever. So for an intended purpose to benefit them. This is just legislators taking certain parts of the bill or certain parts of the budget and saying, hey, let's reserve some of this for Atlanta or New York City, just because. Not that I happen to be the representative of those two places, but let's just set some money aside for schools and highways there. This is the franking privilege, which I just looked at this word. It's never once been brought up in AP Government, I don't think, but it's essentially, apparently, where U.S. members of Congress, the vice president, and certain other officials can send mail for free using their signature and not postage stamps, which is kind of interesting. But it kind of makes sense because they're in charge of things like the U.S. Postal Service. So it's like, this is habeas corpus, or you should have the body, which is where detainees or prisoners that have been arrested can challenge the legality of their imprisonment or arrest to a judge and justify why they're being violated, I guess. I thought this was, I don't know. Again, I haven't heard this since week 1. I don't think it'll come up again, but in case you're wondering, it's when prisoners or detainees can appeal their imprisonment because they're. So we have the lame duck next, which is where it's that time period when the president or other elected officials have lost the election or have lost the next term but are still the president. Because think about it, the election is in November for presidential elections, and then the next president doesn't get elected until January 20th. So it's just that period of when basically the president can do whatever they want to theoretically, and if they're not being elected again, then it's just no harm, I guess. So it's kind of controversial, but it's just where an outgoing politician has and their successor has already been chosen, can just sit there and be a lame duck, if you will. This is the Line Item Veto Act, which was, you learn about this in Unit 1, I think, because Clinton tried to make this a thing. But it's the idea of the president can take a bill and only veto parts of it. And this could honestly completely change the bill, which is why it was a problem. Like, theoretically, it shouldn't be a problem, but it's kind of like you can't take a bill that was passed by Congress and say it says, let's spend $200,000 on schools, let's spend $2 million on highways. And then you can't just like X out a few zeros and be like, okay, let's spend $2,000 on schools. Like, it could be detrimentally different. It could change the bill drastically. It also can just like make the bill what it wasn't about originally. And you can't just like cut off parts of the bill. So you have to either completely reject it or completely accept it. And so line item veto is just crossing out certain parts of the bill and vetoing parts of the bill, not the whole bill. Lastly, we have realignment, which in political terms means basically the ideals of each political party. So like Democrats and Republicans and the Green Party and Libertarians. But mainly we're focusing on the main two, Republicans and Democrats. The ideas and like ideologies shift, and like the main example of this is when the Civil Rights Act of 1964 got signed, and then like the Democrat and Republican Party ideals completely just switched, and so now Democrats are more liberal and more progressive, and Republicans are more conservative and traditional. So it's just when the ideals and like power kind of shifts between the two political parties. That was my vocabulary, like my random vocab words. Thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed this video. I liked the idea a lot because it's just kind of like those words you'll see on the exam that's like, I don't really know what that means. I know like the question's kind of asking, but this will just help you further understand the question because you know all of the vocab terms now. So see you next time. Please smash that subscribe button like always.